What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a very powerful upgrade for a deck that has received a little bit of sub-support thanks to Battle of the Legend, and that is of course Dracotail. Now as you can see beside it, it also involves Magistus. Now I'm not calling this Dracotail Magistus because it basically involves one card in the main deck and then like 3 in the extra deck. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a combo at the end of the video of how you utilize these cards in this deck, and it is insanely powerful because what it does is it sets you up this technical Omni Negate in the form of the Zoroark, but then it also gives you the ability to use a technical Snatch Steal during your opponent's turn, and it's actually very easy to do so. So, if you want to see more from this deck, like test stands or anything else in between, make sure you get the video above 50 likes in the first 24 hours. With that out of the way, I'm just going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you what we've got, and explain why we've got it. So, starting off with the Dracotail core elements and core cards themselves, you're going to be maxing out on every single one of these. So I'll give you a brief rundown of what each of the cards do. So we're going to go for 3 of the Fey Mana. This is your during the main phase technical hand trap. You discard it to then fusion summon into a dragon or spellcaster monster using monsters in your hand or field to do so. If it is sent to the graveyard as fusion material, it lets you set a Dracotail spell or trap directly from the deck, and all of the Dracotail monsters will do that exact same thing anyway. Then your Dracotail starter in the form of the Dracotail Yugioh. Now this can also be part of the combo in order to get you to your Magistus play alongside the other sub-engine that we're playing in this deck being the Blazing Cartasia. So Yugioh on normal or special lets you add a Dracotail monster from the deck to the hand. More times than not, if you've used it as your normal summon, you're going to be going for a Fey Mana unless you already have that, and then you're going to be going for something like a Pan or an Urgula to deal with spells, traps or monsters. Again, the exact same effect. If it's sent to the graveyard as fusion material, you get to set a Dracotail spell or trap directly from the deck. Then we're on 3 of the Dracotail Mululu. So this is its own in-archetypal Cartasia, which is really nice. So you have the ability during the main phase of a quick effect to fusion summon specifically into a Dracotail monster. Now the benefit of that one again is it gives you that ability to bring it back from the graveyard with certain card effects, but also gives you that another threat of being able to fuse during your opponent's turn to get you into your Arthleon, which will give you the ability of being to return cards from the field or grave back to the hand, or you could even go into the Glamel to be able to destroy cards as well. Really useful, and if it needed anything more, if it's sent to the graveyard as fusion material, not only will it let you set a Dracotail spell or trap from the deck, but it also lets you non-target negate one monster on the field, and that's permanent while that monster is on the field completely, so it's really helpful. Then we're playing the 1 Urgula and the 1 Pan. Now you can bump some of these up should you wish. The benefits of the cards like these ones is the Urgula, if it's sent from the deck to the grave as fusion material, if it's just sent to the graveyard for fusion material, it lets you non-target destroy a spell or trap on the field. Pan lets you non-target destroy a monster on the field during the exact same kind of requirements. The biggest difference that the Urgula has over the Pan is this has the ability to put itself back to the bottom of the deck, and then you add a Dracotail spellcaster from the grave back to the hand. So it lets you recycle your Fey Manas and your Yugioh. Whereas the Pan on the other side is a little bit more specific, because if a face-up fusion monster or monsters you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, while this card is in the graveyard, you place it on the bottom of the deck and then you special summon a Dracotail non-fusion monster from your grave. So the benefit of something like that is it lets you recycle your Mululu or your Yugioh, but it's kind of not as effective or as quick movement as the Pan. I would have loved this to have been the opposite of Pan. Put this back to the bottom of the deck and then revive a dragon from the graveyard would have been really cool. Then for the Dracotail spells, 3 of the Rahu Dragontail, and everyone keeps calling this branded fusion because it technically is. It lets you fuse using one material from the deck and then a material from the hand. The reason you do it that way is all of your Dracotail monsters require exactly that specific requirement: one monster from the one Dracotail monster from the field, and then a monster, one or more monsters from the hand. So the benefit of something like that is you send a Dracotail directly from the deck, then you use any monster in your hand, gets you into one of your Dracotail fusion monsters, which is really helpful. This one does lock you into fusion summoning for the rest of the turn, which is why it's really important that during the combo you do stuff in a very specific line of play. Then the other one we have is 3 Ketu Dragontail. This is absolutely insane going second. It's great going first because it's basically your rotor for any of your Dracotail monsters, but then the added benefit, if you go second and your opponent controls a monster, you can then, on resolution after adding a monster, fusion into any spellcaster or dragon monster from your extra deck, which is really helpful because what you're trying to guarantee there is you'll go Ketu, search out any of your Dracotail monsters, usually perform a fusion summon, and then use that Dracotail monster you've searched to then set the Rahu Dragontail. So you're just going to be able to keep getting more and more resource. Then for the final 2 Dracotail cards, we're playing the 1 Horn and the 1 Flame. So these are like your negator or interactive trap cards that you'll be able to set through your plays. So Horn lets you target and tap position monster on the field and then return it to the hand or extra deck. Then you get to place a Dracotail card from the grave to the bottom of the deck and then draw one card. The Flame lets you target a face-up spell on the field, negate its effects until the end of the turn, and then you place a Dracotail monster from the Dracotail card from the grave to the deck, bottom of the deck, and draw one more card. Now, my biggest bit of advice with a deck like this is that you make sure that when you're using the traps, the second one is always recycling the first one, because then you just get an endless loop of being able to recycle your trap cards for the grind game. So if you start off with Flame, make sure Horn is the one putting Flame back to the bottom of the deck and then drawing you the card. And then when you use Flame again, you put the Horn back and you just go on a loop and round and round and round. So that's it for all the Dracotail cards in the main deck. Then moving on to the most important supporting engine. So the most important supporting engine that we are playing is Free Blazing Cartasia. Now what makes this card so incredibly good is it is quite like Moodaloo, but it lets you fusion summon into any monster that you wish to as a quick effect during the main phase. If that wasn't enough, if a fusion monster is sent from the field or even extra deck or anywhere to your graveyard, during the end phase you get to add this back to the hand. So the benefit of a card like this is the fact that it lets you recycle constantly having a material in your hand. Now this can come up in multitudes of ways when we talk about the next card in a second, because it can sometimes lead you to different fusion plays if you wanted to. The other added benefit, if you want it to be extra spicy, is it is a level 4 tuner. So you can use it to make some level 12 synchro plays, which could be really, really fun. But the idea behind this one is you're going to use it as effect to fuse, then you're going to link it off into an Artemis, and that's the Magistus monster you're going to need to perform your fusion summon with the Fey Mana to then get you into the Magistus fusion monster and put your opponent in a position of, I now have nib protection in a second, unless you nib me now. So really, really kind of cool card, absolutely insane. The fact it recycles its own resource is really important. And one thing that a lot of people might consider is, why don't you play Fusion Deployment? Well, with a deck like Dracotails, you want to make sure you're playing as many monsters as possible that are going to get you somewhere, because what you want to be doing as like turn 0 or even in the future turns is you want to make sure you've got Fey Mana plus 2 monsters to fuse with. So if you're playing a Fusion Deployment and you open that up, that can be a little bit tricky. On the other side of that as well is Fusion Deployment locks you into Fusion Summoning for the entire turn. So when you're trying to activate something like that, it makes it a lot harder to get into your Magistus monsters, because none of the Magistus fusion monsters list a Magistus by name. It just says a Magistus monster plus. Speaking of Magistus monster, this is the card that has gone from £3 at pre-order to currently £15 on eBay, which is absolutely wild. And that is the Crowley the Gifted Magistus. Now you can play 3 of this if you wanted to, but if you're trying to be on a bit more of a tidy budget, 1 is all you really need. Now this card, face up on the field, is used as fusion material. It can be treated as Alistair the Invoker. So the benefit of that one is it can start unlocking stuff for like Kaliga. It can also unlock stuff like the Macabre as well, because you'll be able to recycle the Blazing Cartasia back to the hand, and you've got the light attribute should you need to. The only issue with that is that as you're using your place for like Fey Mana to fuse from the hand and everything else in between, like your resource in your hand can be quite valuable, and you don't want to be burning it off as easily as you might need to. The other added benefit of Crowley, which is what makes it so good, is if it's added to your hand except by drawing it. So that's when it's returning from the graveyard with something like an Arfulion, for example. You then get to special summon it. If it is normal or specialed, except during down state, you can also fusion summon a Magistus or an invoked fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from the hand or field. Now there's 2 targets you can go into this one. Like I've already mentioned, Kaliga can be a very, very powerful stun card. The other card that you can go into is going to be your Weiss, and the reason you're going to the Spirit is because this thing gives you the ability to technically snatch steal one of your opponent's monsters, which is pretty insane, especially when you look at like the Yummy matchup and they want their monster on the field. You go, okay, cool, make my plays. Rather than return it to the hand, I'll just steal it, and then you can't get it to the graveyard no matter what you do. The last kind of card that I'm playing that is a monster that can help me fusion summon is the Performer Power Odd Eyes Dissolver. You don't have to play this, it's just one of the cards that I had to bump it out of 40. I was originally playing a very small Shadow package, and I only went against it and went, you know what, I'm going to cut them out completely, I'm going to focus on some hand traps. There are some more flex spots in the hand trap spots that I'll talk you through in a minute, but with the benefit of something like the Odd Eyes Dissolver, is this one in the scale lets you fusion summon a Dragon Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from the hand or field as material. Now this is a soft once per turn, so if you're able to return this back to the hand at some other ways, you can fuse again. But remember, it's a spell in the Pendulum Zone, so you can't return it with your Arfulion unless you're going to bring it back from the graveyard, which again is another way that you can fuse it in the hand, put it to the graveyard, and then add it back, so you've got another fusion play during the next turn as well. Really kind of cool, useful card. Again, it's just one of the ones that basically acts as a 4th Cartasia while also being a monster. You could consider something like King of the Swamp in this one, which would then start opening up the door to play stuff like Dragoon. You could then look into playing a Tyrant Dragon. So it kind of gives you a little bit more flexible options, and there's just kind of stuff that you can play around with. For the hand traps of choice, I went with 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, backed up by 3 Molchomi Fuelos and 3 Perulia, pretty bog standard on this one. And then I've also gone with the K9 package of 3 Azuna and the 1 Lupus. Now before you switch off and go crazy, this is basically just acting as a hand trap. That's all it's there doing. That's exactly what Perulia is doing. These, I feel, in my opinion, are the strongest and most aggressive hand traps in the entire format right now. So when you're able to utilize them all, what the Azuna is going to get you is it's going to put some pressure on your opponent early doors. It'll put even more pressure on your opponent turn 0 because you could technically Typhon your opponent, but you could also very easily go into a Ripper, and then the other rank 5 we're playing is the Vylon. Now, when you're going into either one of those, Valon, sorry, not Vylon. When you're going into either one of those, keeping in mind that what you're doing there is you're setting up the ability with your Ripper to give you a negate from the hand or grave, which is really good in the mirror matchup. You're also getting the option to set yourself up for protection from Nibiru a little bit earlier than anything else, and it protects the rest of your combos. It also does mean that when it comes back to your turn, you can go, cool, Ripper, search me out another Azuna. Then with the Lupus in the graveyard, your opponent activates a card in hand, that's how you're going to get to the Valon, and you're just going to add more and more and more. So it's a really good way of recycling resources, but also putting pressure on your opponent as well. The final card that I choose to play is 3 Super Poly. I just feel that this puts in so much work for me, for the pure fact that it lets you dodge some targeted effects sometimes, but then it also opens up the door to be able to break opponents' fields, and they can't respond to it at all. Unlike Dark Rule No More, where they might be able to chain some trap cards or some spell cards and play around it a little bit, or even Forbidden Droplet, activating something like Super Poly completely clears your opponent's field off with what you're trying to achieve, then gives you a fusion monster that could be double protection for you. So if you go into a Mud Dragon, you can start protecting all of your stuff by targeting. If you go into Garura and then you fuse off the Garura later on, you can then open up the door to some fusion plays. So that's it for the entire main deck, a flat 40 card deck. Like I've already said, the K9 4 card package is a very easily sub out option, and you can go for stuff like a Squamata, a Beast, a Hedgehog, so you can go down a Shaddoll route. You can also open it back up and go back to the Tearlament version that I've shown you previously, so that's your Havnis, your Shiren, and your Merly, and then you've got the open up slots for your Free King of the Swamps and a Polymerization, so you've got loads of flexibility to change it around as and when you see fit. So moving on to the extra deck. So let's talk about the Magistus cards themselves. So start off with the first Magistus card being the Artemis. Now the reason we're playing the Artemis on this one is that you're going to be able to turn your Lucias or you're going to be able to turn your Cartasia into the Artemis after you've already usually worked your way into the first fusion summon. The only thing you need to do is make sure you use Artemis before you activate Rahu Dragontail, and the reason you're doing that is you need a Magistus monster. The reason you need a Magistus monster is because the Zora requires 1 Magistus monster and then a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster. Now you'll see this in a bit more depth and detail during the combo in the end, but the idea is that your Cartasia will get you your first fusion play, which will usually be your Arfulion. The Arfulion will recycle the materials you've used as fusion materials from the Cartasia, and it's put that fusion material monster on the field that you need. You will then turn your Cartasia into the Artemis, and in doing so, activate your Feymana, fusing the Arfulion plus your Artemis to go into the Zorora. Then at this point here, you have the Zorora's effect to equip the Artemis from the graveyard back to it. Now you've got the ability to set yourself up with the negate because the Zorora can send the Artemis to the graveyard to negate. The added benefit of that one is the Artemis, while it's equipped to the Zorora, will then allow you to add the Crowley from the deck to the hand. You then have that option, should you wish, to special summon down the Crowley and perform another fusion summon, which could, if you have a Dark in hand, work you into Kaliga, or if you have the ability to use a Spellcaster in hand, which is where the recycle of Cartasia comes into play, you could even go into the Awas. In doing so, this is going to give you the Snatch Steal capabilities, but you have loads of different options should you want to explore them. Speaking of the Spell Spirit, so this one requires a Magistus monster plus a Spellcaster. So again, as mentioned, that would be your Crowley plus your Cartasia. So while this card is an equipped spell, the equipped monster gains 1,000 attack. During the main phase, you get a quick effect to target one other face-up monster on the field and equip this card you control to it. If this card was equipped to an opponent's monster, by this effect you take control of the equipped monster. It can't activate its effect. So it's a nice little Snatch Steal that also boosts it by 1,000, so you can kind of turn the tables and use that monster against your opponent. Just to give people the lowdown on Zorora as well, just so you have a bit of an idea, but this one lets you target an effect monster in your graveyard or your opponent controls and equip that effect monster to this card. When a monster effect is activated, you get a quick effect to send a face-up Magistus monster card you control to the graveyard. Now the benefit of something like this, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but because it sends it as cost, it checks what the card is in the graveyard. So with Artemis equipped to it, you send that equipped card as cost, as it is a Magistus monster. It will be treated as a spell in the spell and trap zone, but you send it as an equipped spell, sorry. You send it as a monster, it checks it's a monster in the graveyard, so that's how you can kind of keep the Zeraora on the field. So when a monster effect is activated, you send a face up to the graveyard, negate the effect, and then you get to destroy a card your opponent controls. So it's a 2-for-1, which is really, really cool. Then moving on to the Dracotails, we're on 2 of the Arfulion. You can play 3 of this. I'm not too sure on that one. If I was to play 3 of it, I would cut the Glamel down to 1. But I do like the option of having the 2 of these because this can be my more aggressive card and this can be my recycle card. Then I've got the 1 Sicurion Dragon, which can technically be a Super Poly target, but is also just a generically great card in the mirror match. For my Super Poly targets, I play the 1 Garura, the 1 Mud Dragon, and then for those really annoying matchups where they can just pretty much present anything, like a DDD High Wave King Caesar that you can't out, or a Ripper that doesn't really fit any of the attributes you require, I've gone for the Magistus Chorozo. Now, this being a Magistus, nice little bonus. But on top of this, it requires a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster, so any of the extra deck monster summons that my opponent wants to have, plus a Spellcaster. So if I normal summon down Cartasia, and my opponent goes, oh, I'm going to interact with the Cartasia, I can go, cool, Super Poly, Cartasia, and what your monster, off we go. Lucias, they want to interact with Lucias, sure. Normal summon Lucias, try to use Lucias's effect, they try to use Imperm, I go, cool, chain Super Poly, Lucias, plus your High Wave King Caesar, off they go, I get a Chorozo, plus I get to resolve Lucias, then I'm going to get something like a Rahu Dragontail, and then move my plays further forward from there. Then for the other generic cards, we've got the 1 SP Little Knight, the 1 Superstar Slayer Typhon, and then our 2 rank 5s in the Valon and the K9 17 Ripper. Now again, if you're not playing the K9 engine, you take these out, you can increase your Super Poly target options. You could, like I said, if you're going back to the King of the Swamp route, you take out these 2. This can be your Tyrant Dragon and your Dragoon. If you're going down the Tearlament route, this can be Rukalos and Kaleido Heart. So you're getting your options where at all you need them and what you see works for you. So that's pretty much it for the entire main deck. If you're looking at a side deck for this deck, it really kind of comes down to the environment. You kind of want to be going for 15 monsters. Now, I'm not sure I have my exact side deck to one side. Actually, I might do. It might be in my deck box because I was going to play this at locals this weekend, but there was an odd number of players, so I decided not to go. Now, you would play Artifact Lancer, depending on the environment, because that is still a monster. But then the cards that I decided to go to, and extra shine on this one because that's just how we do it. So 2 Ghost Spell, I just feel it's a really good kind of hand trap right now, and you can adapt it. But you'll see from this list that I like to go with a lot of 2-ofs to give me a bit more of a range than anything else. But that really kind of comes down to, you know, your preference as an individual. So got these 4 here. I then play 3 Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. I just like it as an option because it's another monster. It lets you fix your hand a little bit. It sets you up with targeted protection, which is really, really nice as well. And then on top of that, on top of that as well, it also gives you the ability to so target protection, recycle your hand, and it acts as another Molchummy in a sense. 3 Draw and Lockbird, you know, kind of play this as and when you see fit. We already saw how effective it can be in rogue matchups. We know how good it is in a generic as generally as a card, and then that really is entirely up to you. I then decided to go with 3 Fenrir. So this would be the Artifact Lancer. This is just like, I felt that I had a lot of like hand traps like that weren't going to help me break fields, and I felt that's where the Fenrir would come in. And the last 2 is 2 Bestials. You can make these 3 if you want to. Like I said, if you want to make Ghost Bell, Nibiru, Ghost Ogre, Lancer, you name it, you adapt it as you see fit. But for this one, I just quite like the Bestials. They can very easily be DD Crows, but what I liked about the Bestials is it replaces itself during the end phase. Not to mention that the Magnamut can also search you out your Moodaloo, which sometimes can be really, really helpful, or you can work your way into a Pan or an Urgular depending on what you need and what you want to have access to. So that's it for the entire profile. Hope this has given a bit of a breakdown into what the deck looks like. It probably answers the question as to why a lot of people are now asking for the Crowley, and also why they're asking for the Zeraora as well, and sometimes the Awais, because these will be cards that a lot of people just put to one side, completely forgot about, and was like, oh yeah, I don't need them, and then they're like, oh, goddamn, the new cards are actually really, really kind of cool. Yes, we don't have the Magistus Spoon yet, but I feel that that's probably going to be more effective if you're trying to play a pure build. Whereas as you've seen with this channel currently, I am always exploring the Dracotail variants. Of the 3 Justice Hunters decks, this is the one that I quite like the most. And it's why I'm trying to be as experimental as possible, see what different kind of combinations work and how it goes from there. So that's it for the entire profile. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset, I'm going to zoom out, and then I'm going to show you the combo that leads you to the Zoroark and then leads you with a bit more materials to kind of play and interact during your opponent's turn as well. So I'll be back in a second. The basic combo pretty much looks like this. You need a Route 2 Cartesia, but it can also be Lugias in certain situations. You need access to Feymana, which can come off the back of the Lugias, but can also come off the back of Ketu. So you've got loads of different ways to get there, and then you just need any random monster. So to be able to perform this, you should be able to do it relatively easily. Like I said, if your Blazing Cartesia is your Lugias, what happens here is you normal summon Lugias, you get access to the Feymana, you still confuse, you just need another monster in the hand because this would do the exact same play that you're about to see. So you're going to normal summon down the Cartesia, you're going to use Cartesia's effect here to fuse the Feymana and your random monster in the hand. It doesn't matter because obviously with the Arfulion, we're going to be able to recycle that monster anyway. The idea is you just need to perform a fusion summon without Rahu, so you don't lock yourself into fusion summoning plays. Go Chaining 1 Arfulion, target the both of these cards here. Chaining 2 will be the Feymana to set a card from the deck, and the one you're going to want to set will be Rahu. If you already have access to Rahu, you've also got Ketu you can go for as well, because you'd already have access to Rahu. Then what you're going to do here is you're going to turn your Blazing Cartesia into your Magistus Link 1 Artemis, and the reason you need to do that is because you need a Magistus monster plus your Arfulion after obviously resolving both of these back to the hand. Then what you can do here is you can now use the Feymana's effect to fuse, utilising the Dracotail Arfulion and the Magistus Artemis to get you into the brand new Zoroark. Now at this exact moment in time we are currently on our 4th summon, so you're pretty much protected from the Biru, because what we'll then be able to do here is you're going to be able to go Zoroark's effect to equip the Artemis from the graveyard, and in doing so you can use Artemis's effect to grab you a bit more fusion material, being the brand new Crowley. Now if you wanted to, you can summon down the Crowley. In doing so, you could trigger its effect to go into, maybe, if you wanted to, a Makaba, but you can also go into a Kaliga. You could also go into the Awaish during this turn if you wanted to. That's just another way to not play into like an Azuna or something else during your opponent's turn if they top deck it. But that is entirely up to you, like how cautious you want to be, you know, as and when you please. So both of these cards are now in our hand. We can now activate Rahu Dragontail. We're going to send our Urgula, and then we're going to use the Molchomi Perulia. It doesn't make much of a difference. You can also use the Crowley just to guarantee that, you know, you've got these cards here. So we'll use both of these. It doesn't make any difference because you're going to be able to add them back to the hand anyway. You're then going to fuse into the Gomel. You'll then be able to use the effect of the Urgula that you just sent from the deck to set you a card. So we've used the Rahu. This I would then tend to go for your Flame, because then you've got the Spell Negate. You can go for the Horn if you want to, it doesn't make much of a huge difference here. Then what you'll do here is you'll use the Urgula to go back to the bottom of the deck, and then this will guarantee to add you back the Feymana to the hand. And then we move to the end phase, and during the end phase, because the Arfulion has gone to the graveyard, you can add back the Blazing Cartesia. So you've now recycled your hand pretty much, because you're still going to have 2 more cards from your starting hand as well. So your hand is pretty much free. Then what we're going to do, just so you can kind of see how we play for our opponent's turn, is that our field currently looks like this. During our opponent's main phase, you can activate the Feymana to fuse, and in doing so, what you're going to want to use is you're going to want to go Chaining 1 Feymana, Chaining 2 Gomel to destroy a card. Then use the Gomel to fuse off alongside either the Molchomi that recycled back during our first turn play, or you can use the Cartesia. You kind of want to keep the Cartesia because that's the spellcast you're going to need, unless the Perulia is something like a Lugias. So just guaranteed, use that one there. Work your way into the second Arfulion. Arfulion's effect will target a card in the graveyard. You can also chain the second Arfulion as well, as 2 monsters have gone to the graveyard, but it doesn't make much of a difference. You're probably better off saving this in the grave for later on. But what you want to target here is you're going to target the Crowley. This would then add the Crowley back to the hand. And then the added benefit of something like that is because Crowley's been added, Crowley can summon itself back down to the field. Now you can trigger Crowley's effect to fuse, and the options that you know you guarantee have to fuse in your hand is a Blazing Cartesia. So you can go into a Makaba if you want to be really spicy, or you go into the Awaish, and in doing so, put both of those to the graveyard. This gets used to the Awaish. Awaish now has the ability to snatch steal one of your opponent's monsters, so we're going to, you know, use Awaish to steal one of our opponent's monsters. We've still got the ability of Zoroark to negate, send in the Artemis, and then destroy. And then we still have the ability of Flame to target a card in the graveyard, probably going to be the Rahu Dragontail, put it back to the bottom of the deck, and then draw 1 fresh new card. So you've got ways of recycling everything. You're still going to have the other 2 cards in the hand as well, so they could be even more interactions against your opponent. You just have a lot more going for you. And then the only thing that needs to happen here is if you choose to tribute off the Zoroark, or even choose to tribute off the Awaish, a fusion monster's gone to the graveyard, so then you get to add the Cartesia back. Or if they destroy either of these, you add the Cartesia back. So you've just got that resource constantly looping, and that's when you can obviously burn through more Arfulions if you wanted to play free, and that's kind of where the Gamel could come down. But then I also quite like the option of using a second Gamel, because then it can be a little bit more aggressive to help me clear fields off. You know, you've got loads of different options. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, that's it for the entire profile and the combo. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please let me know in the comments down below. I suppose one of the questions I'm going to get is which variant of Dracotail that I've played so far or profiled so far do I think is the best. Honestly, I've had a lot of fun with every single one of them. Like, Regenesis is one of my pet versions of the deck. Like, I really do like that version. But then I also quite like this version as well, because it takes up the least amount of additional engine. Like, it takes up 3 cards in the extra deck, which is absolutely fine. Then it takes up 1 in the main deck. And I'm like, yeah, cool, I'm happy with that. The K9 option is just an added option. I'm now using this as a 4-card hand trap. It's basically your Gamma if you wanted to go down that route. But it is also 4 cards that can be taken out for even more consistency cards, or could be hand traps of choice, like 2 Ogres, 2 Bells. You name it, you've got loads of different variants. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share. Any questions, like I said, comments down below. More than happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.